And it's important that a leader be accountable and transparent. I don't believe the FBI concluded that Steele's reporting was bunk after talking to a subsource. But no, I didn't. As the director, you're not kept informed on the details of an investigation. So no, in general, I didn't know what they'd learned from the subsource. I didn't know the particulars of the investigation.
Big interview over the weekend. Former FBI Director James Comey defending the Bureau after the Justice Department's Inspector General found 17 significant errors and omissions by the FBI in the FISA application process. Marc Thiessen, former White House speechwriter and Fox News contributor, joining us now. Marc, we've all had a chance to look and listen to that interview from the weekend. Comey saying he's right, I was wrong, I was overconfident in the procedures. What happened was not acceptable. What did you take away from that?
Well, it was kind of a non-apology apology. He essentially said, well, we were sloppy. No, you weren't sloppy. The FBI, the Inspector General found the FBI falsified evidence in the FISA process. Falsifying evidence. How do you accidentally falsify evidence? You can't. It has to be intentional. It's not sloppy. James Comey told the American people repeatedly that the Steele dossier was not essential to the FISA warrants. It was just one part of a broad panoply of information that was presented to the FISA court. The Inspector General found that it was quote, played a central and essential role in getting the FISA warrants. In other words, if it had not been for the Steele dossier, there would have been no FISA warrant. There would have been no surveillance. So, you know, James Comey has a lot of explaining to do, and he didn't do a very good job of it on Sunday.
There was also this moment getting a lot of attention where James Comey took on AG Barr for speculating on the motivations of the FBI. Here was that exchange.
He does not have a factual basis as the Attorney General of the United States to be speculating that agents acted in bad faith. The facts just aren't there. Full stop. That doesn't make it any less consequential, any less important, but that's an irresponsible statement.
Mark?
You know, for James Comey, the man who presided over the debacle that was explained by the IG, to be attacking Bill Barr is kind of outrageous. I mean, look, what the Inspector General said was that it was either gross negligence or intentional bias. One of the two. He couldn't find the evidence to prove one way or another. Gross negligence or intentional bias. I thought that he said something similar to that about Hillary Clinton in his famous statement on that. Those are not good choices for James Comey. He presided over that, and the fact is, the Attorney General is now working with John Durham, a career prosecutor of unimpeachable integrity, to look into how we got here. Look, we spent 2.5 years, tens of millions of dollars chasing a conspiracy theory that Donald Trump had somehow colluded with Russia to steal the election. It turned out it wasn't true. Americans want to get to the bottom of how that happened. And James Comey was at the center of it. And we're going to see from John Durham whether there was bias in the FBI or not.
All right, moving on to impeachment. There could be a full House vote as early as Wednesday this week. Of course, then it would move on to a trial in the Senate. And Adam Schiff was asked by George Stephanopoulos what would happen if things don't exactly go Democrats' way once this gets to the Senate. And here was the response.
If President Trump is overwhelmingly acquitted in the Senate, is that a failure?
No, it isn't a failure. At least it's not a failure in the sense of our constitutional duty in the House.
Not a failure, he says.
It's the definition of a failure. Look, for 3 years, the Democrats have been accusing Donald Trump of a panoply of crimes, everything from bribery, extortion, campaign finance violations, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, treason. Now they've introduced articles of impeachment that allege no statutory crimes. Not one. It's the first time in American history that there's been articles of impeachment that didn't include any violations of the law. So that is a major step back for the Democrats. It is a failure because they couldn't prove violations of the law. So they have basically vindicated Donald Trump of violating the law. And now he says that that's not a failure. And what's going to happen here now is this is going to go to the Senate. It's leaving the biased, politicized House of Representatives. It's going to go on Republican turf, and it's going to get, and Trump is not going to be convicted. And what's going to happen is the resistance is suddenly going to have the wind come out of its sails as a result. This is going to be a positive for Donald Trump because despite the fact that they have failed to make their case to the American people, that polls show that support for removal has dropped since the hearings, they're proceeding anyway, and they're going to fail and that's going to hurt them going into 2020.
I'll throw the headline from your piece in the Washington Post up on the screen from last week. The impeachment articles are a vindication for Trump. You pretty much just explained it, but how you end that piece, Mark, I don't have time for that excerpt, but I will just read from this. This is the definition of failure, you write. Earlier this year, you referenced back to Nancy Pelosi saying that we shouldn't move forward, Democrats shouldn't move forward unless there was compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan evidence. I don't think we should go down that path. You conclude by saying she was right then. Democrats should have listened. Final thoughts from you this morning.
Well, look at the last week. This has been the best couple of weeks of Donald Trump's presidency. Just look at what's happening in Capitol Hill. He's got agreement on the USMCA trade deal. He got agreement on a spending bill to avert a government shutdown. The Democrats have agreed to his defense bill that includes creation of a Space Force, parental leave, and no restrictions on wall funding. That is a huge set of victories for Donald Trump. How did that happen? It happened because of impeachment. It happened, they've been holding back on these for the past year because they didn't want to give Trump any victories. Now, all of a sudden, they're moderate Democrats who are in trouble because of impeachment need to show they're working with Trump and making progress, so they've unleashed all of these things. So actually, the impeachment process is not only vindicated Trump, overall, it's actually unleashed the gridlock, broke through the gridlock in Washington and given him all these victories. So impeachment has been a net plus for the president.
Very interesting analysis. I'm sure we'll hear more from you later this week. Marc Thiessen, thank you.